right. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Big Town Hall. Where is our Hollywood breaking down barriers for people of color in media? And this is part one. I'm Brooke Thomas. Thanks for allowing me to help, direct traffic here today. But I want to just jump right in and introduce the people you really want to hear from. First up, Latasha Gillespie, Executive Head of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Amazon Studios. Deon Taylor, Director, Producer, Screenwriter at Hidden Empire Film Group. Nina Yang Bon Jovi, Producing Partner at Significant Productions. Karan Brown, SVP Client Partnerships at Fullscreen. And of course, Baron Davis, founder of Slick, Big, and former two-time NBA All-Star.
Woo!
Thank you all.
Get them credits in there. Get them credits in there.
But I think, okay, so just to start, I want just to throw out an open kind of question. Anybody feel free to jump in, because I think it's a better way to introduce yourself than just your title. So if you want to start maybe by breaking down how in your day-to-day you're working towards bringing more diversity and in media and representation.
I'll start. This is Latasha, and since actually this is my day-to-day job, actually, so I'm actively involved on a daily basis in terms of bringing in pitches to meet different folks in our organization. My team and I are actively consulting with the TV team, the movies team, the marketing team, and all the other teams on making sure that we're working with the right agencies, that we're trying to get narratives right, that we're bringing in the right consultants when need be. And also that we're just trying to make connections with people in the industry to make sure we know the talent that's out there, because we know it's not a pipeline problem. There's plenty of talented people out there in the industry.
And I will follow up there and say that in my day-to-day, I work with brands to make sure that we being people of color, are part of the conversation, part of the consideration set when it's not a diversity call, right? Why should we be part of the consideration set only when they're asking for people of a certain color? I want to normalize us just being part of the conversation.
Yeah.
That. Yeah. Only three left, you know?
Jump in.
Go for it, Deon.
I was just going to say, obviously, as an independent filmmaker and a man of color, my wife is actually my producing partner, who is a woman of color as well. We've pretty much cut our teeth on diversity. Just because it was extremely hard for us to actually get into the industry, we had to basically learn how to actually make our own way and build our own way in terms of film, entertainment, television, creating our own content, financing our own content. So one of the things that we've been doing over the last couple of years, almost like the last 7 or 8 years, is we basically going back into communities to tap people that look like us, that have no experience, because we are self-taught as a filmmaker. She's self-taught as a producer. We've actually been able to think right now, to date, we've gotten around 1,600 people in the union, either working in the grip department or camera department or loaders. We've also given a whole bunch of people opportunities to produce on film that would never have got the opportunity. And I think it's really important, because one of the biggest things, and I mean, I'm sure Baron would testify to this, I came from Gary, Indiana, playing basketball, and I never thought about film. I never even thought that was an outlet for someone like myself. No one I know was in the film industry. Obviously people rap and entertain and do all that, but you never think damn, I could be a director or a writer. And it's been really, really great to actually be able to go back to these neighborhoods and show kids that you could actually write on TV shows. You could actually create content and obviously explain to them that the biggest thing in the world that we export is content. And, anyway, so our diversity issue or diversity platform is very alive and active. And we've recently had an opportunity to sit with Latasha a couple of times and see what we need to do to actually bring some stuff over there to them. We waiting for our deal.
It's on the way.
But no, it's great. And here's the thing. It's even better now that everything has been highlighted and magnified, and we're out here, like one of the biggest things that we need to do is make sure we understand that these kids and these young adults, you know, we need you. We need those stories. We need them more than now. We need them more than ever. So anyways, that's our hidden empire. You know, our whole foundation is built off diversity.
That's so great. I love what you said, Deanna, about crew below the line, and crew getting them into the unions. That's one of those really critical things that we need to do in the business. I started my producing career about, officially I say about 10 years ago, but I started in the business about 20 years ago, trying to get into the business because I was never taught that I could be a producer. I didn't even know it even existed. And like most Black, Indigenous, people of color, we don't know that this is actually a career that could be sustainable. And then, and about 11 years ago, I got to meet Forrest Whitaker. We're developing a project together. And then our friendship developed into a business venture and also producing partnership. And I thought, man, it's going to be so easy because I'm partnering up with Forrest Whitaker.
Right.
and I had on this journey with these big dreams and everybody shut us down. I was like, but you're Forrest Whitaker.
Right.
Doing? And that was like a real reality check of the business, how people consider anything, starring people of color, stories that are from a different perspective as like a niche market.
That's right.
Something we kept fighting against. And we were so fortunate that when we discovered Ryan Coogler, you know, from USC and backed his first film, that set the mission of our company, that we have to back storytellers of color. But then it also goes on another level of telling stories that the marketplace wants to avoid because they think it doesn't have value, right? So we got to keep doing it. But on another level is create opportunities for young people to get into the business on the crew level, on the craftsman level. So it's constantly, so it's a balance. So I think all of us here know that our business is very different than the patriarchal white business that's out there because we actually take a weight on our shoulders because we have a lot that we're fighting for. But on my day-to-day is developing scripts and stories or going after IPs that can change the narrative for the marketplace, constantly looking at filmmakers that need the backing. So I mentor at USC filmmakers that get assigned to me or get matched with me, but also out there constantly looking for screenwriters to come up. You know, they don't have to be a huge established screenwriter, but putting money behind that too, paying writers and writers of color, like I will pay you for your script. We don't know if it's going to be great, but I will pay you and put our money where it's at to try to procure that type of storytelling innovation, but also lifting somebody up. So it's across the board. A lot of development work, especially during COVID right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You on mute.
There you go.
For me, you know, I run Business Inside the Game, and you know, I build Business Inside the Game as a platform for athletes, entrepreneurs, screenwriters, C-suites, right, to have the opportunity to talk about topics like this, but also to figure out where can we create an ecosystem where we can solve solutions, right? And so when you look at just the power of, you know, this group right here, you know, it's an incredible opportunity to get like-minded people together that are all fighting the same probable cause. And, you know, from a big standpoint is really going to the networks now and, you know, having them participate in what we would call our big manifesto. And that's teaching the business inside the game of film, TV, digital, you know, marketing. You know, there's so many jobs in Hollywood, and, you know, kids need to have experiential learning opportunities, especially minority kids, because you're fighting this good fight all the time. So you don't really get the experience. You only get to see it on TV. So with Big, we want to build this manifesto and this mandate to start to hold, you know, the bigger studios accountable for, you know, teaching, right, the lessons of business inside the game, but also finding those smaller vendors, those smaller production companies, right? Being able to tag and partner ourselves and the media side with No Label and Slick with, you know, young people who need $5,000 to produce something, right? You know, and so we're not looking at, you know, this whole greater picture of Hollywood without thinking about the macro to the micro economics and how everybody can, you know, be beneficial in the ecosystem. So that's kind of like my role. I don't have a deal. I'm a creator. I wish I had a deal, Latasha. I'm coming
all day.
Listen, DD knows I rock with him and I love what he's creating. And that's, and what's so powerful about what he's doing is, again, like, you shouldn't put people in a box. Yeah, he was a 2-time All-Star, but like, I'm in love with Black Santa. I'm in love with WTF. I'm in love with a lot of the stuff that his camp is producing. And what's special about all of them is, as you heard from Dion and Nina specifically, is they have also understood the mandate to not just find a lane for themselves, but they're creating space at the table for other people. So, you know, we're really proud of the fact that, like, we have a deal with Nina and Forrest, Significant Productions, and with Lena and with Viola Davis and Juby Productions and Michael B. Jordan. But what's so important is when those folks bring their ecosystem to the table too, because then it makes space for those writers to get a shot on a show. It makes space for those young directors to get a chance to direct an episode that wouldn't happen if you all didn't exist. And I tell people all the time, it is not diversity, trickle-down diversity-nomics. So just because you engage with a Black creator or a person of color creator doesn't always mean that they bring other people of color to the table. And so I so appreciate the work that they do because they are very conscious in doing that.
Great.
Can we talk a little bit about getting shut down? Because I think it's almost myth busting at this point. Things that are so widely told. There's not an audience. This is why, or even on the outside, or nobody's pitching me. No one's asking for. We're looking for this. We can't find it. What are some of the experiences that you've had, things that you've been told, and how do we fight against those narratives? Dion, you kind of talked a little bit about this a second ago. If you want to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, look, the only reason that I'm actually on set right now, we're shooting the movie right now, and the only way that I was able to kind of get myself in the door, I heard all of that. I heard it all, and I took it upon myself because when I first came to Hollywood, I'm a giant fan of horror films. So when I first stepped into Hollywood, trying to get a horror film made, I was told numerous times, no, because of the color of my skin, because we don't make horror films, right? And I could not distinctly point to another Black filmmaker that made successful horror films. So it goes back to what you just said, which is, I don't think there's an audience for that, right? And here we are, 15 years later, we Get Out, right? Arguably the best horror film ever made, and one of the highest grossing horror films ever made with Black people. And anyway, so that set us on a completely different train track than so many other people. We actually built our company, Hidden Empire, outside of Hollywood. Everything that we have done has been outside of the normal Hollywood system completely. The Intruder, independently done. Traffic, independently done. Meet the Blacks, independently done and released and put out theatrically by ourselves. So we never even tapped into the system because we were told no so many times. And it was a little bit unique for me being completely a different type of filmmaker because to date, I am the only Black filmmaker that jumped genres. In other words, I make horror, which is Intruder and Chain Letter and things of that nature. I make comedies, which is Meet the Blacks. I do dramas, which is Black and Blue. So when I come in, I'm very diverse, and that is very foreign to Hollywood, right? Normally, you make a certain type of film, and that's what you do. And I told Hollywood a long time ago, well, there's a guy named Steven Spielberg that made Jaws and The Color Purple, and no one told him he couldn't do either of those. So as we kind of work in this system now we're playing in the Hollywood game because obviously now there's hundreds of studio movies we're attached to and doing and all that. But we stay independent for that very reason because I didn't realize that my path and all the times I was told no and laughed at and, you know, messed up and fell down, I didn't realize that there were so many people watching. And as we became successful, we have actually created a whole new bandwidth of what I call dreamers, guys that don't have no experience, guys that just got out of jail. Like, yo, I got this dope ass movie idea. I'm gonna do what Dion did and go make my own shit. And I think that's how we have to operate, because those fragmented moments like that I've had, they become systems like Baron is creating. In other words, you are creating something that you're making your own wave. Yeah. And even today, as we sit here with watching like the stuff that's going on with Nick Cannon, you know, obviously it is a very tough situation he's in with anti-Semitic statements and, you know, him feeling the way he feels. But the reality is Nick Cannon should have already been his own network. Right. Right? Like, I mean, he doesn't need any platform. He created Wild 'N Out. He has his own talk show. He has his own podcast. But we don't understand that we can actually do that and opt out of these systems and be that much more powerful. So that's what I say.
I would like to piggyback off of Dion because, you know, Dion is somebody that I've been watching his trajectory, right? So as an independent creator, producer, writer, and now director, you know, it's like, as much as I know people in Hollywood, as much as I went to school with them, you know what I mean? My kids go to school, it's still a no, right?
Which is wild, right?
I have Black Santa, you know what I mean? I have Black Santa, and, you know, just thinking about, you know, me going in and telling them the power of a, you know, a superhero, of a Black man that's on time, that's jolly, that's friendly, you know, bringing gifts. You know, it's like they didn't get it, and they were like, "Well, how does it live throughout the year?" And I'm like, "Well, you know, how does Santa Claus live throughout the year, right?" And you know, what's his origin story? I'm like, "What's Santa Claus' origin story, right?" And so when you start thinking about just, you know, like with Dion, it was like, I'm just gonna keep knocking against the walls until I find either the right person in Hollywood that believes, right, or the right people or community of people that are like-minded, that we can still go out and, you know, operate. Because Hollywood, I always say, Hollywood is made up of nothing. It can be commoditized, right? You cannot invest in it, right? So it's like, you know, you can't measure the volatility. And so you can actually go and create your own Hollywood, case in point, Dion, case in point, Nina, right? Or you can be a disruptor and a builder of Hollywood, case in point, Latasha, case in point, Karan, right? And so, you know, Hollywood is really fragmented industries and big brands with banks and distribution. And so for me, it was like, let me look at that. And now let me go make a movie, and then let me follow Dion's path, and like, let me use that to make another movie and another movie. And I think you have to, you know, more so for the people out there, you gotta just keep beating against the wall, and you gotta keep finding your path, whether it's straight, direct, to the side. You know, don't be afraid to like believe in your stuff and to push your things through.
Absolutely. And that's why I think a panel like this one is so important, because in order to really run this play, we all have to be playing different positions. Yeah. If we all try to play the same position, we are not going to make any progress. And to tie it back to something Nina said earlier about Forest Whitaker. Forest Whitaker's name should mean something. Yeah. But if we're not in those rooms, we are allowing them to put value on our heroes.
Mm-hmm. No, it's crazy, like what Brooke was saying, like the no's, right? We got every no when it came to Fruitvale Station. And, I mean, people are like, first-time director from Oakland, African-American young man, stories too depressing, every excuse across town. And I was just like, we got to make this. So I called my friends in Asia. I'm like, I need money. You know, I'm like, I never asked you guys for anything, but I need money. So my Asian friends came in to invest in it. So after Fruitvale, we thought, we're like, oh my God, we made it. We now know what to do. We go to try to make dope, pitched it around town. Everybody said no. once again, I had to go back to my friends in Asia and say, I need to do the second film, but please trust me. And they did. And we just hit it out of the park. And then, but the struggle didn't stop. Same struggle with Roxanne. Everybody told us no one wants to watch a young Black girl's story. I mean, it's crazy. And then come to Boots Riley, who, you know, shopped his script for 10 years. And I'm like, wow, he's a revolutionary filmmaker. And people will be like, well, you know, he's a rapper and he's older. He's at the time 45. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And we, once again, had to raise independent money to make that film to prove a point. And that wasn't that long ago, you know?
Yeah. So. And the funny thing is, white Hollywood doesn't have a problem telling a depressing story about us. So, you know, it's amazing to me that then when you want to tell it, then there's no market for it. And it's even counterintuitive to the research. So I was blown away. Annenberg Institute and Reframe did a study just recently where they looked at the top 100 grossing films every year for like the last 17 years. And when you normalize the films by marketing budget, production budget, distribution geography, time of year it was distributed, by about 12 different factors, the movies who starred Black or people of color leads and people of color cast, predominantly people of color cast, outperformed the other movies domestically and internationally. Yet, still, as an institution, we go back to foreign sales numbers as if they are the Bible, as if they are true, which all say that you can't sell a movie with a Black or minority lead outside of the US. And it's just not even statistically true.
That's so true.
Yeah, but it's also it's also when you really get into when you really dive into this and you really begin to understand like the business of it, it gets even ugly. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I'll give you an example. We made The Intruder for $3 million.
Good movie.
That movie goes out against Avengers Endgame, the biggest movie historically ever done in the world. There's also 4 other studio movies on the same release date. We opened number 2 in the world with a $3 million film. It goes on to stay number 2 against Endgame for 6 weeks. Meanwhile, while it's beating every movie that they put out, possibly, and I mean Charlize Theron, Seth Rogen, whatever the hell they threw at that film, it would beat it, right? Almost got to $40 million in the box office. When we got ready to do our international sales, right? Now, remember, there are lesser horror films that make at least $5 to $10 million foreign. Our movie was only sold to certain markets. That movie only made $1 million foreign. Why is that? Well, how could you take a movie that opens number 2 in the world with Dennis Quaid as a villain and that movie not make $10 million foreign? Well, it's because they're not selling it foreign. Because they're not shopping it foreign. Because they're not doing the trailers. Because they're not doing all the stuff that they do for all the other films.
Yep.
So when you get into a situation like that, this is all about the learning process. Yeah. So now what do you have to do as a filmmaker and as a business, because you're learning on your feet? Now you got to understand, okay, now when I make my movie, instead of me giving you worldwide rights, you can only have domestic rights, and I'm going to sell my movie foreign by myself because I know how to go into the marketplace and do my things. But here's going back to Boots Riley and everybody else that we were just talking about. What's crazy and what's scary is you can make the greatest film in the world. If it's not marketed correctly, if the date is not correct, for most Black filmmakers, Black writers, Black producers, if that movie fails, you're done.
Yep.
You don't get another chance.
And
right. So
part of still not get a second shot.
No, you don't get a second chance. So part of my motto is, you know, we make movies like mixtapes. We just keep going. we ain't stopping because we like, yo, I don't know what this gonna do, but I know this one ready. And I don't know what that one gonna do, but that because we refuse to let somebody I have met so many directors who have worked their ass off on the movie and then they sit back like, when they see this, watch what happens. And I'll be like, all right, well, I'm gonna go over here and make some more movies. While you waiting for your masterpiece to drop, I'm going to go over here and do what I need to do because I know it's more than the movie. It's everything. So I just want to say, you know, while we're on this thing, for every filmmaker out there listening, move, man. keep moving. The day of, you know, you being Francis Ford Coppola, where you make one film and that's going to be your movie, or Quentin Tarantino, where you have 10 movies and that's what it was. We can't do that as Black people. We have no luxury like that. Spike Lee was just looking for how he gonna get his next movie made. Straight up. He can't sit back and be like, I think I'm gonna do this. No, he had to go to Amazon to get Chirac made. He had to go to Netflix after the Oscar to get that made. Like, we have to just keep moving until we break the doors down, and we can be in a situation where Ryan Coogler or whomever that is can really sit back and be like, now my next movie is going to be this. It can't. We just don't have the luxury. So keep making movies, keep knocking doors down. Don't think one going to hit. You got to just keep shooting baskets, man. One will go in.
And the reason I think that is so important to keep moving is because even our successes are being used as proof of concept.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
You out there to see if something works. If something works, now I have to say, can I scale it? And if I can scale it, I don't necessarily need you, because what America has shown is that really there's not a problem with Black culture. And I think you did say it earlier, Dion, that one of our biggest exports is content. One of our biggest exports is also culture. Yeah. America and the world has shown they don't have a problem with Black culture. It's the Black faces attached to it that there's a problem with. Yeah. So people do get upset if they did have one hit and then they're left out of the next conversation. Mm-hmm. And so we have to temper the successes and the failures. You have to keep moving. You have to define your own success and become undeniable.
Right. Yeah.
So we have an audience question. We have a couple of them, actually, so I want to throw a couple out to you. Dr. Venus Reese is asking, is there a space for older artists who are starting later in their lives? And if so, how do mature people enter?
Well, I would say I just directed a movie, and Lou Beatty was, my lead character, older African-American, accomplished actor, come from the Motown days, the Motown block. We also did an independent film called Senior Love Triangle. So, it's dope too.
I love it.
It's fire. It deals with a lot of like mental health issues, former vets. But, I think for us with Slick and No Label is to really create Slick creates the asset and the proof of concept. No Label is looking at how do we serve these people? Like, my movie I just made, Domino, pretty much David Arquette is the biggest star in the movie, but everybody else is social media stars, right? And, my goal was to take these guys from YouTube, the next iteration of the all deaf comedians and people like that, and say, hey, if I can make a movie for under $1 million, right? And I can keep doing that, then I'll get to Dion's level of making them at 3. Then I'll go on, to making the $50 million movie. But, some of these people don't get the opportunity to have the outlet, or the trajectory. So for me, it's like, find those people who are funny, find those people who are talented. I think if you're older, like, look for projects, create your project. But for us, we're looking for, all aspects of life, because we want our stuff to be grounded, authentic, whether it's funny, drama, sports version, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, just earlier when I was talking about Boots Riley, when I met him, he's already in his 40s. Today he's 49. And he recently, I think maybe 6 months ago, tweeted out something going, I wish I had more time to make all the movies I want to make, because he feels that he got into the business late. And I'm like, man, no, you could keep doing it. It was the perfect timing for him to have all that life experience, not only as a musician, rapper, but an activist, that he was able to create this film at that moment in his mid-40s, for him to launch it. So I don't think it's late. I think that it's a lot of it comes from life experience, especially for people of color. It's life experience. And your first film that you're going to write or direct, it could be your own experience that only you can write it, and you can produce it and direct it and find great teams to collaborate with. I always say this is a team sport. Can't produce one movie by myself. I need a collective team of talented individuals who have the same vision. So it's about building your team around you, and then you grow with that team. And it could be, your team could be all people in their 40s or 50s. It's not too late, because only you can tell these stories. And we're so specialized in that.
I agree with everything Nina said. I'm going to plus one that the one thing I would encourage, though, is as you're building that team, like, build diversity in that team. I tell people all the time, my best mentors are under 30. I learned so much from people under 30 that is, it's not funny. They think a completely different way than I do. They have a completely different perspective, and I'm constantly challenged. They used to just get on my nerves, right? And then I was like, just live a little and then you'll understand. And then I stopped to actually listen to what they were saying. And their perspective is so helpful, especially if you're trying to break into the entertainment industry. How young people consume content, how they think about content is a lot different than folks my age and older. So build that team, as Nina said, and make sure you have some folks on there that are under 30 that will teach you some things.
Yeah, I learned that myself too, because I have nephews who say, hey, Aunt Nina, when you make a movie about high school or college people, make sure we read it, because we know when it's from old people like you.
They can tell.
I think the older you're better. I think the old soul is priceless in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Boots, I've only met him once, but I would tell him the greatest filmmakers do their greatest work between 50 and 70 years old, when you're a real director. So when you start thinking about Scorsese, when you start thinking about Clint Eastwood, for Coppola, when you really pull it back, Stanley Kubrick, you hit your stride when you're older, because what ultimately happens is you understand life, and life has happened. And most actors that are great actually are old souls. That's why they're great, because you have to have experiences in order to be a great actor or a great director. You got to be able to draw from something when you're directing a film or have an energy towards something. Ryan Coogler was great for Black Panther because he's from Oakland, right? Like, he understood it. It's in his DNA. He knows what the struggle is. He was able to communicate with Michael B. Jordan to get that performance because he lived it, right? So same with Fruitvale. When I get on the set of something like Black and Blue, I know what the streets feel like. I know what it is. I know what the energy is with black versus cops. So those are experiences that you have. And as you get older, I would tell anybody that's trying to get into the space, my mom at 60 years old was like, I'm finna be a movie star. And I'm like, Mom, you don't go sit your ass down. And my mom ended up being in two of Tyler Perry's movies. And
Great.
60 and ended up starring in one of his movies, Madea Goes to Jail, which is his biggest movie to date. And I'm just saying, man, like, you can never stop dreaming. You can never stop reinventing yourself. The biggest lie that they told us is that we can't be what we dream of.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So part of the energy that we all need to have on this call and going forward is, and to share with minorities, share with Black people. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, Dion, you making them little movies now, huh? I'm like, yeah, I'm making them little movies, right? And you just keep on grinding, man. Oh, you rapping now, huh? Like, that's the whole energy. So what I'm saying is we have to cut through that. Oh, you producing the movies now? Okay, I see what you're trying to do. Like, no, you have to reinvent yourself over and over and over again. And if you don't understand how to do that, then you're going to be stuck on the treadmill doing the same thing. Now you the 40-year-old basketball player still trying to get overseas, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? At some point, you got to be like, damn, let me try this. You know what I mean? We have to be adventurous, man. And I'll leave you guys with this, and I'm going to shut up because I love these topics. When, and this is something you guys should read. As African Americans, when we were little, this is all a slave mentality, what I'm telling you guys about. When you were little, your mom, when you go to a grocery store, your mom would say, stand right here, don't move, don't go nowhere. You move, I'm a pop you, right? So you stand in line like you ain't moving, you ain't doing nothing. Meanwhile, you look around and it's a white kid tearing up the aisles, grabbing stuff, bringing it back, shoes, dirty, climbing on stuff. Well, he's learning to explore.
Yeah.
He's learning to search. He's learning to look. He's learning to take a chance. We're sitting there and we have been trained to just stay there and don't move, don't be adventurous. Yeah. And that all comes from a slave mentality. So part of this moment that I'm telling you guys about, which is don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. I'm telling you to let your mom's hand go and run down the aisle and look at the candy colors. Right? And that's really what it's about. So yeah, man, we in it now. We all got to keep moving.
Yeah, it was a slave mentality and a safety, and at some point a safety mentality, right? Because that store owner, for our parents, that store owner was not going to overlook that black child running in the store, right? But you're right. We have to some degree cuffed our children.
Yeah, that's right.
Not understanding to think big and dream. And I was telling my son, I don't want to hear about your safety plan. I want to hear about your crazy, ridiculous think big plan.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think for me, it's just, you got to use that, right? Use that as your spear. Use that as your ammunition when you're going out there, because, there are no dreams that, are too big, right? There are no ideas that are too big, because if you're chasing your dreams, you're going to learn more and more and more and more and more about yourself. You're going to extend your capacity, right? You're going to meet the people who can inspire you and help you learn. And so I agree with you, Dion. Like, I was a kid that, I was going to explore, right? And I tell my kids, I let my kids roam. You know what I mean? This is their planet. And for us, as Black people, we've always been having to be extra buttoned up, right?
Yep.
Overly prepared, right? You know what I mean? And so with that, we haven't been renegade enough to say, you know what? Let's be more like this. Let's be more independent, right? If 5 of us can't get a movie done, let's put this $25,000 a piece together and let's do Dion's first. Then let's make that work. Then let's do mine first. You know what I mean? So, I think that it from a creator standpoint, great, but also from, where's the accountability in the studio system, right? Mm-hmm. Even in social justice wake, it's like, oh, we just going to give him some money. Oh, we just going to give him a deal. Oh, we going to give him a deal. Where's the accountability held, on the corporate side, right? When you're looking at, the Viacoms, the Warner Brothers, the Sonys of the world, they may give one person, like you were saying, that deal, but that one person is now responsible for all of Black content.
Right.
That's not enough money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Money. Or outlets, or distribution, or marketing, right? So no matter how much money you get, you're only a small dot, right, in this whole Hollywood matrix, instead of figuring out how to build out a program, right? How to build out a division, right? And really stick to it and believe in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The chat is popping down there. We have a lot of questions coming in, so I want to get to a couple more of them. Sydney asked, given the way how numbers driven, and we talked about this a little bit, we touched on this a bit. Karan, you were talking about this a bit too. Given the way given how numbers driven Hollywood is, I often hear the argument that films with Black leads don't sell well internationally. And so how do we battle against that stigma? I know we got into just continuously doing it.
I think the funny thing about numbers is if you really want to, you can slice and dice them and tell whatever story fits whatever narrative that you're trying to tell, right? So again, I think it's about having a seat at the table, having us in those rooms that are holding people accountable, right? That are challenging people to be allies behind closed doors and not just on social media, because it does take more than just us to bring us into the fold. And so I think allowing the numbers not to tell the entire story, even if that's what they want to rest their laurels on, at a certain point, you have to decide to do what's right. And you have to show me what your belief of what is right is.
Right.
And I do feel like this time is different.
But that goes back to the point I was making earlier about the study. That it's not even true. The numbers that they're referring to are not even accurate. Yeah, they are accurate if you just look at domestic and international rent. If you just look at the box office numbers, but you have to take into account how much production budget did that film get compared to its counterpart? How much marketing budget did that film get compared to its counterpart? What was the distribution window? Did it play in China? Because that makes a difference. All those factors that determine the success of a film is far beyond the quality of the film or even who stars in it. And so that's what that study is debunking, that myth that people of color don't sell well overseas. If they have a level playing field, they actually outperform the other ones.
Absolutely.
So you want to make money, make the movie and give it the support it needs.
Yeah, those numbers and data is actually quite biased. And so Get Out proved that wrong. But when Get Out proves that wrong in Asia, for example, they're like, oh, it's an anomaly. And that's the problem, is the excuses that come out when something succeeds. Yeah. But it's a old subscription of old mentality of thinking foreign sales. And these guys who do foreign sales all subscribe to this notion at the same time, and they don't want to pay for the films that we produce and create, because if they pay as little as possible and they profit, and we don't have the data on that. And that's so crazy. But when it came to Roxanne, every single person, every buyer that came through and said, there's no value. Finally, Netflix said, we'll buy it. And then we really pushed them hard. When they released it, the weekend of March 23rd, 2018, we go, can you give us the data, please? Like, we begged and really pushed boundaries there. And they said, yes, you guys were number one in the world. And I was like, what, opening weekend, Roxanne number one in the world? They go, yeah. I go, what territories? And they started naming Asian territory, European territories, South American territories. That was so mind-blowing. So everything that people were lying to us about was just false, you know?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say it's terrible, man. And everybody listening, I keep saying it. Look, I lived overseas for 3 years. When I tell you they more hip hop than you,
man,
okay? When I tell you I'm in Germany and they rapping Jay-Z more than you, and wearing your clothes and wearing your culture and putting rims on their car. So when I got into the film business, I knew what it was. They're just simply not marketing the movie to them, because she just told you they'd rather give you an $8 million movie, make a bunch of money over here and not push it over there. Look, why is it that Bad Boys works overseas? Why does Get Out work overseas? Yeah. Right? You could name all the movies that they want to push and you'll see. But if I'm constantly giving you Tom Cruise since you was a little boy, Brad Pitt since you was a little boy, right? Charlize Theron since she was a little girl. Those are stars. So now anything they do gonna work over there. But we're not doing the same thing for the black stars overseas.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off that just because, like, just looking at through the lens of sports, right? Like, when I think international, I see multicultural people, sports, you know what I mean? And so there's black, there's hip hop. And I'm like, yo, you're telling me, like, a documentary we made for the Drew, they were like, yo, we can't sell it, in France, nobody wants it. And then I go to the French street ball tournament, and they're like, yo, we want to be like the Drew. And there's 20,000 people there. I know it's 20,000 people there that have similar interests, right? Yeah. I know that there are 450 million basketball fans alone in China. Right. I know that basketball is the second largest sport in India and growing, right? So
that's right.
That I can't make a basketball movie, right? Or a basketball movie won't work. You don't know my audience, right?
Right.
A discrimination on us, right, as filmmakers, not deploying that, but it's also a discrimination to the international audience by saying, you don't know black people. Asian people only know Asian people. You guys are like, there's no culture, right? And there's no culture of Hollywood, not even in Netflix, not even in the bigger ecosystem, that we can say, yo, every week we like going to the movies, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so we are going to see Charlize Theron. We are going to see Brad Pitt. We're going to see Intruder, right? We're going to see Get Out, right? We want to see it. And when we do see the Get Outs, the Intruders, right? When Roxanne drops or Bad Boy 3, it's an event for us.
Yeah.
Because ain't nobody serving our needs.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and Barron and I have a mutual friend named Stephon Marbury, and we just dropped a doc called A Kid from Coney Island, and we're so proud of it because it's a Black kid from Coney Island with a statue in China, right? He's like being loved.
I've been watching it.
That was a great doc, by the way. It was really good. Very well done. Yeah.
5 years in the making. Yeah. But once again, it was so tough to sell. It was so tough to sell. What Barron said, people are like, who's going to watch this? I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a multicultural story that crosses oceans. But that challenge of it's because it stars a Black man. You know?
Hey, well, that's why we finna stop selling.
This guy.
That's why we finna stop selling.
Right? It's not even like, you know, thinking about marketing it. Like, here's a kid who grew up in the hood, right? Who explored his entire basketball world, right? And like, there's so many touch points to market something like that or to draw people to it instead of saying, oh, Stephon Marbury is a basketball player. This only appeals to basketball people. And it's like, no, this is motivational. This is inspirational. You know what I mean? This is learning, right? And so, you know, but when other films go out, it's like there's education attached to it. And McDonald's just did a whole, you know, give back program. And so you have all these people kind of buying in to commercial properties. And a lot of times those movies fail financially, right? And so the majority of the, let's call them the multi-ethnicity movies, right, that are made, to your point, Latasha, they're failing, right? And so the minority is winning because we get the kibbles and bits.
Despite the odds, we still, and that's why I think the point that was made earlier, why we have to fight this on so many fronts, why we all have a role in how do we begin to dismantle these systems and make sure, like Deion is the Lil Wayne of making movies. He's going to keep putting out tracks and, you know, pushing the envelope. And those who sit on our side also have an obligation to change the narrative for the future generation. So my biggest thing is making sure that when Black and brown filmmakers come into the room, there's somebody in the room that looks like them. There's somebody in the room that can speak to the authenticity of that project. And so, you know, we kicked off the Howard Entertainment Program earlier this year, and the whole goal is to create a generation of young executives to be able to come into the industry and understand how it works. And so they spend a spring semester on the academic side, going to USC, Emerson. They're taught at Amazon Studios with industry professors and Howard professors as their co-teachers. And then the summer semester is really a fellowship. But what was really intentional and why this is important is in order to dismantle those systems, you got to build equity in them. So we know these are some of the best and brightest students in the country, but we know HBCUs and Howard are 60% Pell Grant recipients. Georgetown down the street and some of those other universities, George Mason, are like 6 to 10% Pell Grant recipients. So they don't have the same means and resources to come take a free internship in LA to learn the business side of Hollywood.
Sure.
And so for us, it was, we paid their tuition, we paid their housing, we paid a food stipend, travel stipends, we covered all their transportation. Our hypothesis was, if you level the playing field, they will outperform.
Absolutely.
And they have.
Yep.
They have blown us away. They come with such a fresh and unique perspective. They're smart, they're talented. COVID-19 didn't stop them. We had to send them home when everything, you know, got hot and heavy. They're working online, virtually, showing up, delivering capstone projects and still killing it. But we need to create more opportunities, not just for pipelines and access, but we got to do it with equity, not just at that college level, but at the Nina level. Right? At the Barron level, at the Deion level, how do we make sure we do more of that and building an ecosystem so that talented filmmakers like all of you can be successful and get your projects out there?
I love that, because what you're doing, but and then on our side is just one void that I've come to realize is there are not enough producers of color overall. There are writers, directors, but not producers of color to mandate certain things. For the Stephon Marbury doc, when I got his life rights, and I remember going to the agencies, I want to make a film about him. I got a list of 15 white male doc filmmakers. And I was just like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, I had to call them out. I go, do you not know what we do? And they're like, well, these filmmakers are amazing in doc space and they won a lot of awards. And I'm like, no, we're good. So I had to go out. And so we had to take that extra effort to go out to search for the right storyteller to tell the story. And when we first got Cootie and Chike, people were like, oh, well, they come from music video and I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. And then we create this beautiful, inspirational film that they allowed Stefan to be vulnerable because he trusted them. Yeah. And those are the nuances that we need as producers to say no to those and not get swayed by them by saying, well, you know, you're making a wrong choice by not going with one of these award-winning doc filmmakers who happen to be white men. You know, like it's like so we have to have more producers of color to be in the room to speak up. You know, like in TV too. I'm in television now, and we have a show called Godfather of Harlem, and I remember speaking up at these meetings, and it was quite intimidating. You know, I'm like, it's called Godfather of Harlem. Can we have directors who are Black? You know, and he looks at me like, who is this crazy Asian woman, right? But they listen and they go, okay, explain to us why it's important, and we go, you know, we get that room to explain why it's, and we make changes like that, right? So
I just want to address what I've been feeling like is the elephant in the room, and it's going to tie something Baron said to something Nina said. When the going got really tough, there was a point, Nina, when you said, I need to call my friends in Asia. And for our entire 400-year existence here in America, we have not had our, you know, friends in Asia place to go to. Yeah. So when Baron's saying, at what point are we going to, everybody put in $25,000 and now we create a place for us to go to? Because the long and short of it is you're going to get treated a certain way when somebody thinks you only have one option. Mm-hmm. That's in a relationship, that's in business, that's in whatever. So every time we show up to these meetings, we're asking for deals, we're asking to be put on, we're asking for a seat at the table. The thought is, this is probably your only option, so I have all of the leverage. When we start creating and becoming our own, you know, I'm just going to say friends in Asia for ourselves, then we're going to get treated a little bit differently. And I think that the time is now for these companies to step up and say, what is the role that you are going to play in that? We need you to put some of your money, some of your resources toward changing the landscape and the narrative. And one of the things I'm most proud right now of Fullscreen is for putting their time, energy, and employee resources on having sit down, like let's come up with whole campaigns, with programs, like you were talking about, Latasha. How do we reduce some of those barriers? We did a program with AT&T, that was this mentorship program, where we helped young filmmakers create their short. Yeah. Young filmmakers don't have the money to create a 15-minute glossy, beautiful short that they can go enter into Sundance or wherever else they want to enter it into. There are so many barriers to entry for us, and I am calling on companies right now to do their part. If they really want to put something out more than an Instagram quote that says we support Black Lives Matter, now is the time.
So Lulu has a question. She says her name is Lulu Valencia. I'm a screenwriter. I'm curious as to your suggestions on getting repped. Agents won't rep you unless you have TV or film credits. TV doesn't want to give you an opportunity unless you have an agent. Hollywood says they want people of color. Any ideas on getting repped? I think that's a question I see, at least like online, a lot in all aspects of this industry, how hard it is to get an opportunity unless you've had an opportunity. Even actors and actresses, Black actors and actresses talk about the problems in hair and makeup trailers and how traumatizing that is. And I've talked to Black stylists out here in LA who want to be there and help fix those problems, but they can't get there because they don't have the credits. So, you know, it's all across the board.
Yeah.
Can I just say something to that last question? Because I really wanted to say, I just want to speak to what we just talked about a moment ago. You know, when we were talking about calling our friends in Asia, and I just wanted to say this, man, because it's important that we hear it. We don't have any friends. And that's what makes it very hard for us in this industry. But at the same time, what I think we're discussing right now, and I'm so happy to be a part of this, is the ones that get on, we need to have some real conversations with them because they don't put nobody else on.
Right.
And that's a real conversation for another time. Yeah, but the reality is when the door get opened up and you get that shot to produce your own TV show, you are now allowing them to manipulate you and tell you who you hire and what you do, and you're not looking out for the next man. So what happens is the opportunities become too scarce. So if I'm scared to hire you, I'm not scared to stand up like Nina in the room, and I got 2 black TV shows on TV, and and I got all white directors and all white writers. That's your fault too. And so the reality is, at this point, this is where we have to have a real litmus test where we have to begin to hold people accountable for what their actions are too. Absolutely. Hollywood needs the same way that the writers strike, the directors strike, the DGA strikes, is the same way black people need to be prepared to strike too, to not make no more movies.
Right.
But what happens is because you show me some gold coins, I go with you. The reality is we are the black, brown, Asian, women. We are the biggest audience for film, period. For every horror movie they put out, for every Fast and Furious they put out, it's us that's going. So how about if Vin Diesel was like, I ain't making no more Fast and Furious unless y'all bring me 3 more black directors and 2 more. This is what and if not, we all gonna go sit down. And those need to be the hard conversations that we need to begin to have based on the fact that that's how you hold Hollywood accountable. If they keep on squeezing the lemon and everybody holding back and then one seed pop out like I'm going, then we got a problem. Yeah. And my second point is this. Someone asked about representation. I get that question all the time. And I want to be very real and very authentic with everyone that's listening to this that might be an actor, writer, whoever it is. Ain't nobody going to represent you until you make yourself hot. Let me say it one more time. There is nobody in the world they don't discover people anymore. 30 years ago, you walk down the street, somebody, oh my God, you got that look, right? That's over. If you're an actor or you're trying to get into the space, a agent and a manager comes to you when you have made yourself hot, when you have gotten yourself into the door, when you have gotten you have went on commercials relentlessly, you have got into a movie by yourself, you have got into that TV show as a supporting cast member by yourself. That's when they're going to come. That's what makes this so hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Right. But that is part of why you don't have an agent. You have to go crazy. You have to have a metaphysical death in order to get into this space and any other business that you're trying to do. So you must be prepared to die fighting to try to get what you're trying to go. And then when you get yourself going, an agent and a manager, wow, you're really good in that. I seen the commercial, the Taco Bell commercial. Oh my God, you have to go get that. So I just want to be real about that because I used to be like, damn, if I had an agent, man, as a director, they could just see what I have. And then I found myself 9 years later, like I ain't got no agent, no manager, I'm doing everything. On my 13th year, after my 7th film is when I got an agent, right? Because I was like, damn, I just need somebody to help me get a better deal here, right? But I didn't need nobody to help me get on. I needed somebody to help me structure deals and show me how I could get more leverage and all those good things. So you got to get ready to go fight and do that. So I'm putting myself on mute because I'll keep on talking.
I think that's great advice. But Dion, here's the thing, Dion, though, before everybody black in Hollywood strikes, they have to ask themselves the question, have they done what you have done, what Baron has done, what Nina has done? Have they tried to broaden the ecosystem? Have they brought their ecosystem with them to the table? Because you would be surprised how many times, we're working with Black creatives and then they bring us 3 white male, cisgen straight white male showrunners.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
talk about that. I'm going back on mute. Talk about it.
So, and that's what I'm saying, like, leverage these opportunities. When you get in the door, that's the opportunity for you to bring your people to the table. That's the opportunity for you to create generational wealth in your community. That's your seat at the table. Leverage that. That's part of the attraction of doing business with new, fresh voices, because you know people we don't know, evidently. But if you bring the same 3 white male, cis, straight men to the table, then it's the same guys that show run everything else in Hollywood.
All right, y'all, it is.
Yeah, there's opportunity. So I have to shout out Lena. So Lena introduced us to Little Marvin, who created a show, Them Covenant, which is brilliant, had never show run before, but he was so clear in his vision. He was so clear in his writing. He was so clear about what this project was that we believe no one else could do a better job at it than him. So then you put an ecosystem around him to help him be successful, but you let him show run his show.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And then to the agency, I just wanted to piggyback, just because it's business inside the game, you know, you're talking about representation. Well, we don't have people looking at representation as a business, right? And so on the flip side, we got to start thinking about creating management companies, being agents, right? Like we go back to our friends. If Dion is the director, I'm going to practice to be the agent, right? And you know, you got to have that entourage mentality, because not everybody is a star, not everybody is a creative, one guy is a great idea guy but can't produce. And so we got to look at the whole ecosystem of Hollywood and say, man, I need to inject there. There are no Black people. Let's go carve out some space. There are no Asian people. Let's go carve out some space, right? And building infrastructure, right? And systems and institutions inside of institutions is what America is all about. Is what Hollywood is all about. So, you know, I think it's the other side too. We have to encourage and show pathways of, you know, business jobs as agents too, to represent people.
Can you all believe the hour's up already? I know it went by really, really quickly. The hour's up already. Before we go, I'm curious, because I think we're in such a different space for the first time, at least I've seen in a long time, more people who don't look like us paying attention to us, listening to us, people promising change. A lot of it is just black squares on Instagram and pointless company statements. But do any of you believe that there's been a shift as far as Hollywood goes, and that there's going to be a change starting now?
I sure hope so.
Cricket.
I would say I hope so. I think you know, I say that there are a lot of people that are now in these positions, right, that do understand where the nature of our society is. And a lot of these people that are moving up are people who are looking to champion and be a part of the change, right? And so, you know, you can find yourself in a position of, you know, being stagnant and being kind of old boys network. But I think this new generation of, you know, our generation, you know, we're comfortable with each other, right? And I think that for the first time, even in society, you're having people stepping up and at least asking how could they help. So I think there's going to be a change. I mean, I'm seeing it just for sports with LeBron and, you know, Steph Curry, but I think that there needs to be more, you know what I mean? And, but I definitely see people like going down that path. It just has no structure to it to me.
I think even on a corporate level, this environment and this time has been so helpful even for Black executives, because the Black executives that are in those rooms now have the opportunity to be unapologetic and very clear about their requests.
Yep.
And so that's what I would say. Have a request and be very clear about it, because companies are willing to lean in and do, typically, I would say, what they can. And to those executives, I would also say, don't be so happy to be put on yourself that you leave everybody else behind.
Yes. Right.
I would say the same thing. Like, I think this year has been incredible in terms of people being able to have a voice. We're being able to be taken serious when we say something. It's the first time where you can really talk with the bass in your voice over the last couple months and not scare everybody in the room. But I also think 2020 has been a year of vision and clearing. I think people are being exposed. I think there's a lot of people in our industry that over the last 3 months are now being, you know, the light is being shined on them. People that have not stood up in the moment of social injustice and said anything that we've been supporting for the last 20 years. And we like, yo, where you at? Right? And all of a sudden now, people are being brought to the carpet because authenticity and integrity is everything. And we're in a world right now where we need authentic people to be in the forefront. If you wasn't out on them lines marching for George Floyd, and I didn't bought a movie ticket for you for the last 20 years and you look like me and you ain't had nothing to say and you ain't put a black box up, I got a problem. So I believe this year has been a year of exposing a lot of people, and we're going to see more exposing over the next 2-3 months, because what has to happen is we went through that with the Me Too movement first, where it was a clearing. And everybody's like, damn, what's going on? Everybody started running for the hills. Remember that? Don't forget that, women.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody started running for, oh, damn, I hope they don't look at my, if you did something bad, you got exposed.
Yeah.
Now we're having a clearing for people that do not have humanity.
Yeah.
So now what's getting ready to happen is you're getting ready to see all those people duck and hide. And I ain't got to say no names, but you're starting to see a lot of people getting exposed and brought to the carpet. So I believe that's going to keep happening in order to allow truth to shine forth. So when Nina wants to make a movie like Roxanne, there are authentic people like, we have to make that movie. It's not a guess.
Yeah.
And that's what has to happen in Hollywood. You got to get real people in there to be like, to tell real stories right now, because we are tired. We are tired of James Brown being made with a white director and all white writers. We are tired, right? So we want to go back before Harriet. We want Shaka Zulu. We want to know who we are. We want to start turning over those stones so we can really see our real history. So in order to get to those worlds, where's our Troy, right? Where's our Gladiator? So in order to be able to make those epic tales, we have to have real truthful people in position to go make those movies, not people like, oh yeah, want to make one more slave movie? Oh, let me get everybody together. Like, we're not doing that no more. So anyways, I think 2020 is incredible, with the exception of all the people that are dying and all the people that are out here starving. But I do believe it is what is called a clearing, and you have to stay very prayerful. You have to stay in light, and you have to understand it is not about material items or what you have right now. It's about what's in your heart and how pure you are as a person. And that will get you to tomorrow.
Yeah, well said. I think I hate that it came at the cost of murdering Black bodies for us to get here, but I too believe that we're at a real place of change for all the reasons that they said. I'm also really proud of how Black people and brown people have banded together with a clarity about demanding structural change, not performative change. And I'm also glad to see that our white allies have started having conversations, white people talking to white people, because people of color have been talking to white people for a long time, and that has not changed anything. But until white people start talking to white people in rooms that we're not in about structural change, about us, about inappropriate comments, about all those systems that need dismantling. And I believe those conversations have started happening, and that's why I'm hopeful about the change.
Yep, same here.
Well, thank you all for having me. Once again, before we go, I just want to say,
That's awesome.
I host a podcast, and it's a little different than this. It's called Controlling Our Narrative, and I have a news background, a journalism background, and it's just essentially about giving Black people who look like me, all the seats at the table to talk about how everything going on around us in our world affects us, because we see often so much. There is a huge shift, and so much affects us, but you don't get to see us just discussing it as normal. Our perspectives are different, but they matter. And the podcast just treats it as such, because I come in news, I'm so often been the only person who looks like me in the room. No decision makers who look like me. No, not much of a perspective coming from people who look like me. And so my podcast is on all platforms. If you all would like to check it out, I would really appreciate that. And thank you so much for letting me host this and have this conversation with you all. Thank you.